This podcast is brought to you by Three Rivers Energy Partners. In today's episode of Digest This.
Today, we're charting a course straight into Maritime's quest for deep decarbonization.
Generally, we're talking up to an 80% reduction in GHG emissions versus traditional marine fuel.
Bunkering networks are growing quickly because both demand and regulatory certainty have shot up. But infrastructure alone is only half the story.
Welcome to Digest This, Unpacking Our Sustainable Future, where we dive deep into the latest developments in sustainability and renewable energy. Join us in exploring the pioneering solutions and technologies that are shaping our future. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Digest This, Unpacking Our Sustainable Future. I'm Alex, here with the indomitable Emily, and today we're charting a course straight into Maritime's quest for deep decarbonization. If you've been following the last few episodes, you know how much we love breaking down complex shifts, and this week the spotlight's on shipping, the sector that's finally feeling the regulatory heat.
Hey folks, excited to dive in. Alex, the word heat might be underselling it. A tidal wave is probably more accurate. Seriously, over the last year, we've seen the International Maritime Organization and the EU crank up their climate ambitions. The EU's extending its emissions trading system, now covering shipping, and with Fuel EU Maritime, they're pushing for a 65% greenhouse gas cut from shipping by 2040. Those are deep structural cuts, no more half measures.
Yeah, and the distinction here is, it's not just about hitting targets anymore. The rules are finally catching up to the reality. Only fuels proving real life cycle carbon savings are legit. Food crop biofuels are really under the microscope, almost getting phased out for shipping. It puts a lot of pressure on the industry to adapt without greenwashing their way through.
It's this demand for genuine sustainability, not just box ticking. A proactive adaptation, not just compliance, wins the day.
Right, and you can see that mindset reflected in industry trials, like the Green Pioneer ship that was docked in London earlier this year. It was honestly kind of looked like any other ship, but it was a test bed for ammonia as the next-gen marine fuel. Ports like Singapore and Rotterdam are already moving on pilot bunkering setups, so ships using ammonia or other alt fuels can refuel safely and efficiently. They're not just talking about it, they're getting their hands dirty running real-world pilots. There's this urgency now that wait and see isn't an option anymore.
And I want to emphasize, these regulatory frameworks, especially Fuel EU Maritime, aren't just about penalty and compliance. What's smart is the policy is incentivizing the use of fuels that deliver highest greenhouse gas reductions across the full life cycle. There's robust auditing, tighter documentation, and a big push to avoid indirect land use emissions, which, as we've seen with crop-based biofuels, can totally erase the climate benefit if handled poorly.
So what does all that mean in practice? It means ports and carriers have got to move fast, embrace next-gen fuels that pass not just the regulatory test, but the real climate test as well. And more, the industry's not just waiting to be forced into change, they're piloting these solutions head-on. It's interesting seeing Maritime now doing what we discussed with city-based waste-to-energy in earlier episodes. Being proactive, not just reactive.
All right, let's get into the actual fuels and tech leading this transition. If you've seen headlines lately, LNG, liquefied natural gas, is basically everywhere. What's intriguing is, the sector's embracing a version of LNG that can be renewable, bio-LNG, or as we call it in the biz, RNG, renewable natural gas. And with this form of fuel, generally we're talking up to an 80% reduction in GHG emissions versus traditional marine fuel.
Yeah, and shipping behemoths like Maersk and Höegh Autoliners are leading the market with dual fuel ships, running both LNG and also betting big on advanced biofuels. Actually, on the dual fuel thing, Maersk's got a bunch of their new ships running both methanol and LNG, so they're kind of hedging bets. As soon as bio and e-methanol is available at scale, they can switch over and hit those climate targets. Now, it's not all simple. Even with biofuels, there's this sticky issue. Feedstock matters. Advanced waste-based sources are great, but if you're slipping into food crop territory, not only do regulations shut the door, but sustainability benefits disappear.
Exactly. And then, looking forward, Beyond LNG and biofuels, we hear a lot about hydrogen, e-methanol, and ammonia. Ammonia, like we mentioned with Green Pioneer, emits zero CO2 at the point of use if made from green hydrogen. But there are still major hurdles: building the infrastructure, handling ammonia's toxicity, and of course, cost. Hydrogen's similar, huge promise, but the economics and technology just aren't quite ship-ready at scale yet.
And methanol's having a bit of a moment, but e-methanol especially is still pricey, mainly because renewable electricity is expensive and production's kinda inefficient. Fleets want future-proof flexibility. No one wants to gamble on a tech that's going to strand their assets in 10 years. That's why, just looping back, RNG and bio-LNG are getting traction. They work with what's already out there: minimal retrofitting, existing global bunker storage, and supply chains. You get emission savings now, but you can ramp up further as greener feedstocks scale.
It's this rare win-win. Operators address regulations, secure genuine decarbonization, and don't risk getting stuck with stranded assets if the market shifts. And not to gloss over incremental improvements. Energy efficiency gains, like better hull coatings, route planning software, and even wind-assisted propulsion, are totally in play. But for those deep emissions cuts, fuels remain the centerpiece, and RNG's early lead in life cycle savings and drop-in compatibility make it, honestly, the linchpin for near-term success.
Yeah, and let's talk about scale, because all of this depends on whether enough fuel and the right infrastructure can actually be made available. I mean, just 4 or 5 years ago, getting bio-LNG or RNG at ports was more or less a pilot project. Now, LNG and bio-LNG can be bunkered at about 185 ports worldwide, and that's set to jump to 235 next year. So the supply is getting real, and mainstream shippers notice that. So they're way more likely to invest in the ships and tech that use those fuels.
Absolutely, bunkering networks are growing quickly because both demand and regulatory certainty have shot up. But infrastructure alone is only half the story. The EU's fuel, EU maritime, and similar policies don't just push companies to use alternative fuels, they set strict reporting, robust audit requirements, and even let operators pool compliance credits, if and only if the fuel supply is reliable and well documented. And that's where large-scale RNG supply becomes essential.
Yeah, so Emily, this is where our day jobs come in. At Three Rivers Energy Partners, we're actually producing a ton of RNG from large-scale industrial feedstock sources. We are taking stillage from 2 of the biggest distilleries in Kentucky and Tennessee. We have other projects in the works that also have the potential to create large amounts of RNG in the near future. That's fuel that could be used not just for industrial manufacturing or fleets on land, but increasingly by shipping. The cool part is seeing how scalable this model is. We focus on industrial feedstock sources to help secure long-term consistent production of the renewable fuel we make.
And that industry cross-pollination is key. The transition from demonstration to dependable supply is happening fast. Honestly, it still amazes me how quickly the sector is turning, considering how slow-moving shipping used to be with new tech just 5-6 years ago.
Totally. It feels like, for the first time, we're actually seeing a supply chain and a policy framework strong enough to underpin real long-term investments in next-gen fuels. And looping this back to where we started, the maritime shift happening now, it probably wouldn't be possible without lessons learned from earlier supply and demand struggles in sectors like road transport and ag, something we talked about when RNG was just getting momentum in those markets. This expansion from city buses to container ships makes the case that sector coupling and ambitious policy can actually work together.
And that's a good note to wrap on for today. There's no silver bullet, but with supply scaling, bunkering hubs multiplying, and regulations toughening, RNG is in a prime spot to anchor the maritime transition. Alex, thank you as always. There's so much more on this horizon.
You bet, Emily. Can't wait to dig even deeper next episode. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care and see you on the next journey.
Bye for now, everyone. Stay sustainable.
Thank you for listening to Digest This, Unpacking Our Sustainable Future, a Three Rivers Energy Partners podcast. Three Rivers Energy Partners is a renewable energy company that empowers organizations with the ability to create a sustainable future by converting organic waste streams into renewable energy and resources. To get the latest episode of Digest This, or to find out more about Three Rivers Energy Partners, visit threeriversenergy.com or find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. The sustainable future is being created right now. Keep exploring and keep up to speed with the latest in renewable energy and sustainability. See you next time.